Hey everybody, welcome to Unknown Room episode 9, and today we're joined by Alex Caceres. Alex, how are you today?
I'm doing fine, man. How you doing?
I'm doing all right myself, and as everyone knows, Alex is scheduled to face Steven Peterson on that UFC San Antonio, Texas card. What are your first initial thoughts about that fight?
Um, should be should be a good fight. I mean, seems like a tough opponent. Should be enjoyable for me to do and enjoyable to watch for everybody else.
All right, and I would agree with that statement. But before we get into that, let's go back a little bit because was doing some research and we've seen that you grew up in Miami, and I was just wondering what was it like being in Miami during a kid around that time.
Uh, I mean, growing up in Miami was I was a big gamer, so um, I guess I just didn't have the same interests as most people in Miami did, and didn't necessarily. I mean, I had some very few close friends. I guess you could say a tight knit circle, but for the most part, I guess I just didn't fit the agenda of that lifestyle. So I just never really. I don't know, I can't tell you. I just never really got into it, like like clubbing or going out or keeping up with the fashion and whatnot. And I don't know. I think it was just too much of not myself to focus on. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah. And everyone also knows too around that scene, the Kimbo Slices, the DADA 5000s, and stuff like that that were running those promotions pretty much out of the backyard. And you fought in some of those as well. Tell me about those DADA 5000 fight days. How do you remember that, and how did you even get there to those days?
Well, those were the good old days, you could say. Um, I first started getting into that scene. I mean, I used to get into a lot of fights when I was a kid. Me being, I guess, compared to everybody else, weird. Like being a quiet kid and stuff, like being into anime and just like being into whatever I was into. I was a band geek when I was in high school. I was also on the wrestling team. I had so many different various interests. I even wrote and did spoken word poetry. I was part of the creative writing club and everything. So it's just um, I used to get into a lot of fights. Uh, I guess is the way that I look. I don't necessarily look intimidating or like a tough guy, and the way I sound. I guess everybody in Miami um, associates toughness with like a lot of it too. I mean, anywhere you go, I guess people a lot associate toughness with the way you speak. I guess
Yeah.
the less intelligence or the less pronunciation and punctuation that you speak with, the more tough you are.
Hmm.
So I used to get into a lot of fights in just because like I refused to just talk. I mean, if you came up to me in a menacing way, I just refuse to talk about it. I mean, I just know you're not going to understand me. I've tried it multiple times, so I was to kind of hit you first, and then maybe we can make up and talk later. But
Yeah.
I, I just wouldn't stand for that kind of stuff. People think I was angry. I wasn't necessarily angry. It's just I wasn't. I didn't have patience for that kind of stupidity. You know what I'm saying? Like, but whatever. Beyond that point, I got into a lot of fights there. I joined the wrestling team, and that's when I started training in different styles of martial arts. Thanks to one of my teammates that joined the team, who was name is Enrico Coco.
Hmm.
And once I started training, I met a level, and that's where he was doing the backyard fights. And I know Georgie Masvidal, and I was training alongside with him. They were doing the backyard fights, and they just introduced it to me like, hey, well, you want to do some backyard fights and whatnot. And I was interested. So before that, I started getting. So before that, I started getting pickup fights. Like instead of just getting into random fights at school, if somebody wanted to fight me, I'm like, well, let's make it worth our while. Let's put
Yeah.
some money down. Let's meet up at a place and let's do this. So I started doing that, and then like it was kind of like the build up to that, and then I guess when these guys saw me train, they were like, "Hey, man, you should come out to the backyard over here at Dada's backyard and do a few fights out here, represent us and whatnot. And I'm like, okay, that sounds cool. And that's how I basically just kind of got shoot in there. So it was I didn't know MMA was going on at that time. I don't think it was as big, or maybe it was just starting out at that time. So that was the next best thing to kind of test my skills and make a little money off of it, which did help a lot because I was like one of the only kids that was 16 in high school with a car. It was but other than that, like that's basically how I got into it. Just I needed to see if I was learning proper martial arts, and I'm always doing that every day of my life, even up until now. I want to see if the water that I'm drinking is clean. So I'm always constantly looking for that next bigger test. And win or lose, I try to have a discerning eye about it and see, even if I lose, but did I get better? Because it's my goal in this whole thing that we call life is to progress as a person, not just progress in, I guess you would say, what would you call that, a mob sport mentality. And like, it's not my desire to be just to be famous in one aspect of my life, or be famous in general, just to be a better person. If I can advance, or I can see myself or feel myself react better to losses, or take them easier, or react better to wins, and see myself actually performing skills better and becoming more calm and fluid in my motion, then to me that is always a victory, because life doesn't stop there. It keeps going even when you're all done, but can you keep going with it?
And I know that's another thing that fans notice and appreciate you about you a lot is the fact that you have so many interests that are outside the cage. And we know that you enjoy like building your home and fixing up your garden. So give us an update on how that's going right now.
Well, with all the setbacks, fights in the way and stuff, I only got one more bathroom excuse me, that I'm about, like, I would say halfway done. I got all the plumbing out of the way, and I got all the water sealing out of the way.
And you
Just
did that
fine
all
tunes.
yourself?
Yeah, yeah. I
Wow.
had some help from my friends, a little bit. Yeah, I did require some help from one of my friends to help me out with the plumbing. And it's just not that I didn't know how to do it, but just to make sure that I was doing it right. Same thing with the electricity work, because it's usually a dangerous type of thing. So
Yeah.
just to make sure that I'm doing it right. But other than that, for the most part, I mean, from the walls, floors, ceilings, insulation, to the I mean, everything I pretty much did myself, just from the ground up.
That is insane. Um, let's go back to the fighting because I know you started out in Miami in those backyard fights, but if you look at your career now, you've had so many fights and you fought in so many different locations across the world, from United States to Vegas to China, Japan, Singapore. Is there any of those locations that stick out to you as maybe a favorite, or maybe just a traveling um, memory that you've had from your fight career that stick out?
Well, definitely. There are a lot of places here in the United States definitely stuck out. I mean, I enjoyed when I was in Seattle. I enjoyed when I was in Milwaukee. I mean, like, I feel like but I do I can't say I enjoy fighting outside of the country more. I mean, the plane rides are not fun, but once you're there, I definitely enjoy seeing how people live in different areas, and you'd be surprised how people live differently even from state to state. It's cool how they talk, how they drive, I mean, from every little aspect of life. And but I guess fighting outside the country has been a big deal for me, because every time I come outside the country, it's a huge cultural shock. And and it's like I forgot what movie it was, but one guy said a pretty cool thing. Um, he said, "My father was a sailor. I grew up on the sea, and I've seen too many places. I don't make a good slave."
Hmm,
You know,
that's interesting. Yeah.
and that's where I feel like, understanding people in their life and how they live and in their lifestyles wherever they may live, man. It's crazy how we think we got it made here,
Yeah,
but it's like we could be doing so much better. And in order to be doing it so much better, I feel like we have to embrace the variety of life instead of saying that my way is better than yours, or you're not doing it right. Because that brings me to another quotation that I believe a yogi said. I forget who it was. I'm pretty sure it was maybe Rumi, if I'm not mistaken.
hmm,
The person that wastes the most time climbing the mountain is the person running around the base of the mountain telling everybody they're on the wrong path up the mountain.
yeah,
When we can just embrace all these different paths and know that they all take us to the top, you know and I think that's the beauty of it. I mean, if we can carve out many paths, I mean, it's kind of like everybody helping everybody, nobody will be without help, rather than just claiming or thinking or believing that you found out or you got it, because it's everybody's first time around here as far as we know it. None of us got it.
that's correct.
We're all struggling to find our personal truth, and we all can help each other do so. And I just think it's ridiculous. I think it's very ridiculous and sometimes disheartening and sometimes very frustrating when people, no matter how you do your things, how successful you may be, but it's like they're almost hounding, waiting on those downfalls so that they can just, oh, you see, it wasn't right,
Yeah,
and it's just, it's funny to me because that shouldn't be the meaning of your life, man. Waiting for somebody to slip up just so you can poke at how they slipped up or not. And we're all gonna slip up. We're all human. We make mistakes. We all don't react like level 9,000 forest ninja monks, man. We just not at that fucking level. But and life is too short, as far as we know it, to really understand everything. And I'm not trying to understand everything. I'm just trying to understand a fraction of what this universe has in store for us, so that I may at least, hopefully, treat people with not sympathy but a little bit of empathetic nature.
that is a fantastic answer. And speaking of that, I know one of those things that you promote, or maybe not promote, but a lifestyle that you choose to live is with the veganism. And we know that you're vegan. When did that start?
When I first started considering to go vegan, and I did go vegan the first time for a camp, was the first time I jumped down to 135. I figured if I go vegan, I can lose a lot of weight and get ready. And that's it. I even shaved my hair just to make the weight and everything. That's when I was the first time I went to 135.
Hmm.
And I was just doing it for camps for the first, I would say, for the first year or so. I was just going vegan for camps, and afterwards I would get off being vegan and eat steak and all this other crap.
Yeah.
But then the more and more I started doing it, the more my body just didn't was rejecting it. It didn't want to have it inside of me. As well as the more I started learning about it, it stopped becoming a health issue and started becoming more of a moral issue. And I actually had to face myself, that man in the mirror, and ask myself, would I want to be going out there? Not if I could, but do I want to be going out there all the time? If I had to take that responsibility in my own hands, slitting throats, bleeding things out, gutting them, ripping off their, whatever it may be, just,
Hmm.
killing shit.
Yeah.
I don't. And I honestly, I could say I just didn't want to do it. And when I stopped looking at them as property and started looking at it as life, you can see the life, and you can see the fear, you can see the emotions, you can see the struggle, you can see the pain that they're in. And I don't wish it upon any type of life. And when I started martial arts, I was big into I guess the old school, like, kung fu mentality,
Yeah.
or the Shaolin ways, where their whole purpose of martial arts was not of the destruction of the human body, but the preservation of life. And that went to the smallest to the biggest parts of life. And we're not perfect, you know what I'm saying? Sometimes mosquito will land on me, I'm gonna slap the shit out of it.
Right.
I'm not, like, that cockroach better not climb my motherfucking plates, because we're gonna get it off. But
Yeah.
like, so, like, I know that I'm human, and we do have these faults in us, but at the same time, like, this is why I practice martial arts, was to preserve life, which, let me knock on some wood, which is why I don't have any major injuries or cauliflower ear or too many scars on my face, because my whole concept is to avoid damage. You know what I'm saying? Not necessarily to hurt people or get hurt while hurting people. That doesn't prove to me being tough or anything at all. So with that said, I needed my lifestyle to coincide with what I practice. And if I truly believed that my martial arts was a preservation of life, then I would only be a hypocrite if I began to take life in order to make my martial arts, which is a preservation of life, better.
Very true. And what is the biggest difference you feel in your body competing versus when you were eating, the steaks outside of camp versus the complete vegan lifestyle now?
The biggest change that I felt was the mental clarity, not having that foggy mindset. I was able to see things a little bit more clearly, which I feel like as a person advanced me in more than just a physical way.
That's some fantastic stuff. Is that something that I know sometimes vegan people they encourage others to maybe not change their lifestyle, but just open up their eyes to a new way of life. Is that something that you would recommend to other fighters as a benefit to their career, or is that just a personal thing for you where you feel like it works for you?
I don't think it's just a personal thing, honestly. When like when we think of things scientifically, I mean, as human beings, we're all natural born scientists, and that's not saying that I'm working with quantum physics all the time and I'm colliding subatomic particles together and shit to find out other dimensions.
Hmm.
No, it just means I have a discerning way of looking at things. I'm going to ask questions, form a hypothesis, test that hypothesis, and then see what my results are. So it's based out of facts, testing those theories to see if there are facts or not. So it's not, when you look at the numbers and you look at the facts and you look at the research and all the studies and stuff, there is nothing that no other human being is so different from another that, like, oh, this food's going to affect me differently than it's going to affect you. Every human being is lactose intolerant.
Hmm.
You can't drink a gallon of milk.
Right.
You'll throw up.
Yeah.
You'll get sick. You know what I'm saying? You eat enough red meat, white meat, doesn't matter what kind of meat, it still adds cholesterol to your arteries. The physiology of the human being is that of a frugivore, more closely related to gorillas,
Hmm.
which 99.9 of their food is shoots and fruits and berries and shit. If
Yeah.
they do eat any type of animals, it's gonna be like the bugs stuck under the leaves.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, and
Which I
they
don't
don't,
recommend eating those.
yeah, they don't even know they're eating them. They're just eating their food. So it's just we're not made for it. Our teeth are mostly grinder teeth. These fangs are not justifiable for tearing out flesh.
Yeah.
I mean, gorillas have bigger fangs than us and they eat fruits and vegetables. So it's just we're not made to hunt. We don't have claws. We don't have the strength to contend with herbivoric animals. We just don't got it. If we were set on the wild butt naked with no weapons, I bet your ass will be up in a tree eating apples in no time.
Yeah.
Like our eyes are meant to see color. That's why our predators are black and white. They're meant to see movement. For hunting, we're meant to see color because we're meant to see the bright red fruits or the bright purple or the bright orange fruits and vegetables that say that has the most calories or nutrients that will sustain us. And
I
it's
never
not
even
a
thought
wonder.
about that.
Yeah, when we think about things logically instead of like throwing out our opinions. Well, no, we eat meat because our ancestors ate meat. No, well, like if we were supposed to eat meat, why do we gotta cook it?
Yeah,
There is no other animal that eats meat in this entire world that has to cook their food.
that's true.
You know what I'm saying? And the best foods you can eat are raw, is it not? Raw fruits and vegetables clean you out the best. They give you the most nutrients and they have the most micronutrients. There is no meat on this planet that has micronutrients. It's all macronutrients. And we can't live on macronutrients. We can't thrive off of it. Our brain won't function as clearly. We won't recover as much. And protein is not even the building block of muscle. there's so many different amino acids that do many different things, and building muscle is not necessarily their primary job. It's minerals that build lean muscle. You know, I mean that pack on naturally lean muscle with no fat behind it. We're not the only and even though like fruits and vegetables like coconuts, for instance, have fat, they're not that fat is not harmful to us. It doesn't clog our arteries. It doesn't stick. It assimilates into our body a lot more readily than cholesterol coming from another animal. When the cholesterol comes from another animal, the first thing it does is separates from your body because we're mostly water. So what happens when you put oil in water?
Doesn't mix.
It doesn't mix, but the oil being less dense, less dense, floats to the top.
Right.
So it's not a wonder why that when we put the fat into our body, the fat floats to the top.
Right.
It don't mix with our water. So when we start looking at things logically, it's easy to understand that we're not meant for this type of diet or food. It only kills us slowly. And that's why at the age of 60, men and women look generally the same. It's just, it's crazy, right?
Alex Caceres blowing our minds right now, guys. All right, let's get into some fight questions. So you are going to be fighting Steven Peterson. I know in the past you say you don't watch a lot of sports because you just like to do them, but have you heard about him before, and are you aware of him and his fight style?
I see that he's he pushes the pace. He likes to come out firing, but I know that the minute I start striking with him, and this is always the case, and it's not like to toot my own horn or anything, but the minute I start striking with somebody, they usually try and test my weakness, which I'm not afraid to admit was wrestling in the ground game, and which I'm always working on, always trying to get better, and hopefully make it one of my more dominant aspects of my martial arts. But I do, I can pretty sure expect him to try and bring the fight to the floor, hold me there, or look for a secure submission. Um, and at the same time, just because I'm working on it a lot more, especially from the previous fight, I want to be more renowned and more well-rounded in the ground game. I kind of want it to happen because I want to showcase my skill there. But that's all I can think about that. I know he's gonna come forward. I know he's a tough guy. He can eat a lot of shots, and he's gonna try and grind it out. But it's I feel like that's the story of my life and career.
And while you mentioned that you have studied some tape on him, I know at the lab you guys do some pretty technical stuff while you're training there. It's almost scientific, almost. So, which I mean, I guess the gym has the correct name then, the MMA lab. But when you're there, do you specifically train for an opponent, or do you just brush up on your all-around skills while you're heading into camps?
Well, this has been like an up and down, especially with me and the coaches and stuff. And I think we've came to is not it hasn't always been, but I think we've came to the conclusion and the decision that I do better when I train in general my all around skills instead of trying to prepare for something specifically. I feel like mentally for me it's not good because when I start preparing for something specifically and that doesn't happen, I feel like we didn't prepare for the unknown. And
Yeah.
I just like to kind of I feel like that's where my strength is when I keep things loose and kind of keep things adaptive and keep things flowing. So we definitely been seeing that a lot more, especially in my sparring sessions and my training sessions, that when I kind of leave things a little bit in the air, I'm pretty good at snatching what I need and putting it together.
More so like improvising in there and just showcasing what you can actually do versus having a plan and having to stick to it.
Yeah.
And this is also your quickest turnaround since 2017, I believe. Do you prefer to fight more, or how do you like to balance your schedule with all your other interests you have outside of fighting?
Well, I would prefer to fight a little bit more, to be honest. Uh, I got a good I don't know. It all depends really on the last fight. If I it really goes fight to fight. Sometimes I feel like I need a little bit more time to do some soul searching and rehone my skills and come back stronger. And sometimes I feel like I'm riding a wave and I don't want to stop. So I think I kind of play. I mean, I try to be in the moment as much as possible. I try to play life day to day. I try not to make plans or make schedules because um, it leaves little room to be prepared for the unexpected.
Correct. And so, I know also with all of those interests, you speak extensively about how having all your health coming out of the fight game is very important to you. You have a lot of fights under your belt already. What do you see yourself doing after your fight career is over?
Well, I definitely want to keep practicing martial arts and martial arts for life, for actual crisis situations, not just for sport. Um, and I also want to be able to teach martial arts and help kids that are, I guess, struggling to find a correct path or maybe are a little bit more underprivileged because I did not have the ability to afford martial arts schools. I was kind of like on scholarship programs, which I'm very grateful for because if I didn't have that, if I didn't have that guidance, I don't know what I'd be doing at the moment. So I'd want to kind of give that same thing back to people. And I don't want to, it's not something for me to try and get rich. I just want to really change the minds of people on how they view what life should be. Because I think we're caught up in what we think life is, and it's kind of ass backwards, to be honest with you. You know, we went away so much from. I mean, and this is, I mean, in all indigenous people or all minorities or all like ethnic people, we kind of got pulled away in this Western society from that tribal mentality where each one teach one and each one help another, and there'll be no man left without help. We kind of pulled away from that, like where once we grow up to a certain age, we got to move out, leave our family behind, start our own family, get our own shit, and it's us, 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 us. I'm gonna do me. I'm gonna do me. Fuck the world. You
Hmm.
know what I'm saying? Even if it's the
Yeah.
people closest to you, and it's it's ridiculous, man, and and it's hard, and it's even more difficult trying to express this kind of notion, especially to like family members or close friends, and they look at you like you're sick or mentally diseased or something. Like it's just it doesn't fathom with their thought process at all. And I think we need to pull away from that and reevaluate what a human life is. And it definitely isn't working a 9 to 5 every single day and never progressing your spiritual and conscious level at all. We have so much we have so much angst about just worrying about the basic necessities of life in this so-called modern society. We're still worried about food, water, and shelter,
Hmm.
and it's crazy. I mean, if we're so advanced, I think those three things should not even be an issue, and then we can really start philosophizing about greater things, rather than just when am I going to eat next? Oh,
Yeah.
I need job to make this money that isn't even real so that I can survive in this fucking and I will even roll my family over just to get a leg up. And like it's crazy, man. Like and people say, "Oh, well, it's just human nature." No, I think the nature of what we live in creates that nature. If we live in a competitive society, and which leaves us even competing, getting jealous of our close friends and family, and then we start to hurt each other for no good reason, just because we need to make it. But I don't believe in dependency or independency. I believe in interdependency. We all can do it ourselves, but when we come together, we can definitely make it greater. That's how the geometrical structure of the pyramid stand. They're not independent. They don't stand straight up. They don't stand like this dependent. They're interdependent.
Right.
Each is holding their equal amount of weight, and which is why they stand the test of time. And I think people are looking at structures like that, or architecture like that, or even lifestyles like that, and they're looking too basically at it, when you actually look at what it's doing, why is it lasting so long, and why is it so perfect? You know, what makes it perfect? That equality, and not necessarily equality, that equity. You know,
Mm-hmm.
even though they might not be built the same, but we can give each other that boost that we all need. You know, we can always help each other, and that I'm a firm believer that's how we find ourselves. You know, we find ourselves by losing ourselves in the service of others. There is really no way, man. Everybody's a reflection of you, and if you can't stand somebody, it's probably because, and most part of the time, is there's something inside of them that you see inside of yourself that you don't necessarily like, and you want to make that change.
Wow. I mean, you're hitting it on all the points right now. I think a lot of people are going to learn a whole bunch about this. I have one more question for you before we get out of here. This is something that I asked only UFC vets, people that have experienced this. So throughout your career so far, you've earned multiple performance bonuses. What did you do with the first one you ever earned? Do you remember what you've done with that? I talked to Juan Adams. He said he wants to buy a helicopter. I talked to Roxanne Matafari. She bought a massage chair. What did you do with yours?
With mine, the first thing I did was I took a large portion of that and I gave it to my coach Manuel Lopez, just because he never asked for a dime from me. He trained me for free. He pulled me out of the streets, you know, and put and instilled inside of me a sense of honor and respect, and gave me the stand up that we all love and enjoy today. And then on another piece of it, I helped my mother out with the bills and just try to make life easier for her. And I guess what else did I do with it? It's quite a bit of money, so I was able to. I think that's pretty much it. I spent here and there. I used a lot of it to clean up my diet and buy food that was worthwhile eating. And I do buy lots of video games, but that's a very small part of it, you know.
Yeah.
Um,
We know you're a book reader as well, too. I was wondering if there was a certain book that you got with that first one or anything like that.
well, I mean, their books are not expensive, so I do buy lots of books. I mean, maybe some of my bonus money went to that, but not necessarily specific books. I do read a lot of different books. I'm into a lot of science fiction, and I'm also into a lot of those spiritual books and whatnot. Uh, so yeah, I bought. I felt like I got more than what I needed, and still had money left over. I did save a lot of it, so I
Uh,
still got money saved from it, and I just don't. I don't know. I feel like I live pretty much below my means, and don't. If I don't need it, then I don't want it.
I mean, that's an incredible line that a lot of people I think should take into consideration because, I mean, you never know how long your fight career is going to last and how much you're going to make during it. So when you find somebody that's as good with you as how you are with your money and how you are with your lifestyle, I think it's a good example to show people that, hey, you can have the financial means to have this clean diet, still train at a top level facility and still have money left over to pursue whatever you want to do afterwards.
Yeah, I feel like especially when it comes to food, man, I'd rather spend my money there. I want the highest quality materials inside of my body, not wearing them outside my body. That's it. You know, who cares about the next Jordans or the name brand clothes or the next new nice car or having the brand new iPhone? I don't know. It's just a lot of it's ridiculous to me, man. It's just like, what are you gonna do with it? You know, like, and excuse my language, but one
We
guy
like
told
we
me,
like the cursing.
yeah, one guy told me is like, you want to be rich, you don't want to be nigga rich.
Yeah.
You know, you don't want to have a nice car and no house,
Yeah.
basically. You know what I'm saying? And the real money goes into land. You know, when you own the land, that's owning the gold. You know, you can't. I don't want to rent. I don't want to just have things just to pass the time or to impress somebody else, because that's usually what it really is for. We live vicariously through so many people that are famous for bullshit, and then we just go around trying to impress people. And why are we trying to impress people that don't pay our bills, that don't love us, that don't take care of us, that don't help console us in our times of darkness or in our lowest points? Who cares what they think? You know, they're not in it for you. Why are you going all in for them? Why are you crossing oceans for people that don't want to cross the street? You know, it's
Yeah.
just, we got to stop trying to live for what's around the corner and just enjoy the walk.
And that same exact message is something that my grandmother instilled in my father, and he instilled in me. So it's cool hearing someone else say that same exact quote, passed down in my family for generations. But as far as closing out, any sponsors, fans you'd like to thank before we get out of here?
I want to thank the MMA Lab for everything they did for me. I want to thank the desert for its harsh climates and helping me focus. I want to thank every vegan company out there that's helping making that change, whether it's from Beyond Meat Burgers to DADA to whatever it is, helping just make that transition easier, because it definitely opens up a lot of eyes. Because I know when I started being vegan, it was difficult. They didn't have all those like comfort foods or meals to make the transition easier. I was eating a lot of straight raw vegetables, which is great. It's the best way to do it, but at the same time, it definitely makes the transition easier and makes it more comfortable, so we don't have to give up the fun in life so that we can enjoy. I mean, we don't have to give up the enjoyment out of life so that we can just try and be more healthy. I think it's a great endeavor that a lot of these companies are doing or taking part in, just so that we can be more health conscious without losing the passion of life as well. Even though honestly, I can eat straight raw vegetables and fruits, I think they're the sweetest things on earth. But it is fun every now and again to cook up a plant-based burger patty and whatnot and stuff like that. So that's one of the major things I want to give out there, because it definitely is a huge lifestyle change. I want to thank my original master Manolo for instilling all those qualities in me. I also want to thank my first creative writing teacher, Jason Crespo, who really um, gave me stern talking tos and got me to stop being such a knucklehead in school. And of course, you know, my family and friends, especially the ones that are always there for me and that don't necessarily care what the fuck I do, they still love me.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, and that has been Alex Caceres, episode 9 of The Unknown Room. Alex, best of luck to you on your fight against Steven Peterson. We will see you July 20th.
Thank you very much.
Hey, I'm not surprised, motherfuckers.
Shocked if this fight went the distance.
Unknown MMA. Everything you don't know about MMA.